Hey everybody, welcome to Comics! Comics! With Michael Ravenshadow and Ron Purtee. I am Ron, that's Michael over there. We are going to basically, I don't want to say tear down, but we're going to go in depth on some of the classic stories that have been told in the world of comic books. And we're going to start the first episode, our pilot as it were. We're going to start with 2004's Brad Meltzer penned, Rags Morales penciled Identity Crisis, which is kind of a hot button issue for some people. I don't know why. There's a lot of people who don't like it, but whatever. But we'll get into that in just a minute. First, Michael, how are you doing? How's your week been, or your weekend? I know you were watching the Full Gear.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, week starting off terrible. Aside from this, but no, it was nice. I hadn't seen a pay-per-view. Actually, it's my first AEW pay-per-view that I've seen so far, and it was I thought it was great.
You know, it was. I thought it started off strong, but then the minute it got to like the 6-man street fight, and then the Inner Circle versus America's Top Team, those were kind of like, because everything just went to hell with the weapons and all the other bullshit. I didn't care about Ty Conti and Britt Baker, and I thought it ended weak.
Agreed. I mean, overall, I mean, it's definitely better than well, let's say it's better than some WWE pay-per-views I've seen.
For now, just wait till Vince gets his house in order, and then he's gonna spank him. Just wait. He will. My brother, the intern, is in the chat right now. He is a big fan of Identity Crisis, so I'm sure he can't wait to hear what we have to say. And he doesn't read much in the way of comics, but he's a big Green Arrow fan. Loves Oliver Queen. So couldn't stand the TV show though.
It's a struggle that when that came out, I am a big Oliver Queen mark. My dog is named Oliver for that reason. Always liked them. Was one of my favorite DC superpowers action figures back in the day. And I actually liked his portrayal on Smallville. And depending on how the show goes on, I always bring everything back to Smallville. But I really enjoyed the take on that show. And then when it ended, and there was that like gluttony of superhero shows, I struggle with Arrow because I think they were using the same sets as like that. Isn't that Luther's Mansion? But apparently I stopped watching it in season 1. Then it really got good.
Well, he seemed more like Batman to me because they couldn't do a Batman show, like a proper Batman show, so they did Arrow, and they turned Ollie all like. Urgh.
See, I've heard that criticism too, but I struggle with that a bit too because I mean, Ron, I think as you know, Green Arrow did have the Arrow Cave. Yes. He had an Arrow car. He had an Arrow Signal.
He had a heroin junkie as a sidekick.
Yes, which to be fair, he upped Bruce on that one.
Yes.
No,
your parents aren't dead. You're going to be high on smack.
Which arguably is one of the greatest covers of all time.
Oh yeah, 100%.
A junkie, you know.
You know what's funny is I was at a con that Neil Adams was at, and he had a print of that cover of Green Arrow, Green Lantern, and just for a print that he would sign, he wanted like $150.
Really?
He is. I'll say it now. He's kind of a dick. I mean, granted, he did a lot for Siegel and Schuster and helped them get notoriety for Superman and everything, but he's kind of a dick.
I've heard some of that too. I mean, I love Neil Adams. For me, he's the one that should be credited with making Batman post 66. I know Miller gets a lot of credit, and a lot of that is justified. Not all of it. But I think, when Adams was doing Brave and the Bold, and fans were like, no, the real Batman is in that book, right. and as an artist, I adore Neil Adams.
Oh, but that's the weird thing is like people are a lot of like the most talented people are the biggest dicks.
It's true. I can't do the story justice, but there's a longtime shopper at the store I work at. that did have an issue where he actually bought some Neil Adams artwork, but Neil had some issues with it, and not that he attained it in a negative way. I know Neil had an issue with some artwork being stolen. This person didn't do that, but there was definitely an issue, and I've heard some not so quite positive interactions with Neil and this friend of mine.
That's unfortunate, but let's get to it. You know, let's just break the walls down, as Chris Jericho would say.
Nice.
And let's talk about the 2000. Let me find it. I actually have something cool here. Let's talk about the 2004 Identity Crisis. There's a cover for the trade paperback.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know we talked about spoilers, and I think we'll get into it as we get into it. And if it comes out, it comes out. So this is a warning. If you have not read Identity Crisis, we will probably drop big. We're not going to go out of our way to spoil it, but things are going to come up in conversation. If you don't know about blank blank being the killer, then, and I just happen to drop their name playing the pronoun game, then oh well. But how did you first get introduced to Identity Crisis? Were you there from like the beginning with the issues, or were you in there later with the trade?
No, for me it was all front lines, man. I was steadily reading regularly in those days, and I was getting those single issues. And it just my love for comics is not only the big two, but it goes down from Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Comico, Malibu, Image, First, Epic.
Wow,
so
Malibu. I haven't heard that forever.
I'm not saying I loved it. I'm just saying I read it. You know what I'm saying? But no, it was definitely in my heyday, and I was just such a fan of the DCU post-crisis, really all the way until like probably Brightest Day era. Okay. So not only did it have all my favorite characters, I thought this series too did a really masterful job of weaving in not only past continuity, what was going on at the current moment, and it gave you little Easter eggs. So if you were a fan from back in the day, you would get the references. If you were a casual reader, I think it would be great first exposure. And anybody in the middle was along for a fucking ride, man.
Oh yeah, I mean the thing about it is for me, I was kind of in between. Like I had a couple of the issues, but I was behind on things, so I never read them. So I ended up just getting the trade and reading that.
Yep.
And I think the only issue of it I still have is one with Wonder Woman on the cover.
Yep.
The lasso.
Lasso.
Yeah,
yep.
And so, but this book changed everything before they rebooted the DC universe. This is like, because of what happens with Batman, it changed. It screwed everything up. I mean, and I don't want to say screwed everything up, but I mean, like Batman's a paranoid character to begin with, but after what happened to him in this book happened, he became even more paranoid, and we ended up getting Brother Eye, and all that led to Infinite Crisis, and then Infinite Crisis led to Final Crisis, which for my money is some hot fucking garbage, but that's
unreadable.
Yeah, a Final Crisis is just horrible. But I also think that Grant Morrison's a little overrated sometimes. Like his run on Action Comics, he should not have been writing a Superman book.
It's funny about Grant Morrison because he is a batshit crazy Scotsman, and I'm pretty sure he's been locked in a wizard duel with Alan Moore since like probably 1998. But he has such a love for like the Silver Age and the 50s stuff, and he puts his weird twist on it. But there's some times with him, I'm like, dude, I don't get it. I don't get the love of Batmite. I don't get some of this stuff, dude.
No, I don't. I remember there was one book that my brother loved in Final Crisis. It was a tie-in, and intern, if you want to type what it was in the chat, it had something to do with the villains, about how the villains all agree. Like I think it was Flash's Rogues Gallery, and they agreed that we don't kill. And
yeah,
I forget his name. My brother will pop it in the chat. But he killed, so they had to kill. Like, and he killed Impulse. So they had to they killed him and then they like went to Barry's statue, and they're like, "Look, now we're even," type of thing. Which I thought was kind of cool. But as a whole, Final Crisis was garbage. But Identity, let's get the Identity Crisis. Holy crap! So it starts off with Ralph Denby, elongated man, out on a patrol.
Yep.
And then he finds out that his wife was murdered, and it just sets all these things into motion. I mean, it brings so many characters together that you wouldn't even think about. Like at one, and it's got that iconic panel where Green Arrow is stabbing Deathstroke in the eye with an arrow, which is just like so good.
Well, so much too. I mean, when DC obviously has a thing about crisis, right? And like we said, you mentioned Final Crisis all the way to Infinite Earths. They're always larger in scope. They're wide, epic, events. This really took it down to earth in a way. And maybe it was the writer, Brad Metzler, who
isn't a comic book writer. He was a novelist.
Right. I believe he was. Wasn't he a roommate with Judd Winnick?
He might have been. Well, I mean, as long as he wasn't on the Real World.
The Real World.
Yeah.
But obviously, he had a love for the medium. He did a bunch of I'm not saying knockoff Da Vinci Code books, but a lot of histories and secrets. You may know him from A&E Decoded, I think the show was, with Brad Metzler. But he had a love of comics, and I think it shows. And
he actually helped save the Siegel and Schuster house in Ohio.
Did he really?
Yeah, because I think they were going to tear it down, and he turned it into a landmark, or got it turned into a landmark, which it kind of is. Everybody can. There are people who can shit on Superman all they want, but if it wasn't for Superman, you wouldn't have all the characters you have now.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, you can think that he's corny and that he's a big Boy Scout, which I think is part of the charm of his character. But you wouldn't have Batman, you wouldn't have Wonder Woman, you wouldn't even have the X-Men or anything like that if there was no Superman. He was the first, he was the best, and there is no topping the Man of Steel. And I will die on that hill.
I don't disagree. But once again, I am an Elongated Man fan. I truly am.
That's something I haven't heard anybody ever in life say. I'm a fan of Ralph Denby.
I am. I like when his nose twitches. I love the involvement that Tim and his wife Sue had in the JLI era, where she was brought in as a supporting cast. I like when his nose twitches, when he smells a mystery. But it's even said in it's odd to read now, the Joss Whedon intro, where if you were not a fan of the Elongated Man, because really nobody was, aside from me and maybe Gardner Fox, but by the end of that first issue, if you didn't love him, you goddamn had some emotional connection to him.
Right, exactly. And you felt so bad for him at the end of that first issue. Like that sequence with him holding her and like the tears just coming down his face. It's like his entire world had been taken away from him in one fell swoop.
Because it was. I mean, as he's on patrol with a very obscure character, Nighthawk, they're looking for some weapons, and there's some machinations going on, day in the life of a superhero.
Right.
But the backstory is basically his wife Sue, who just wanted him out the house because she's planning his birthday party, and he's a detective. And they make a running gag where, she always does his birthday early, brings in his friends to think he won't figure it out, but he always knows it. He always knows what she's going to give him for a present. And it's just part of their love. And there's a great line where, Flamehawk, Nighthawk, who is she?
I don't remember. She's inconsequential to the end of the story, essentially.
Firehawk talks about, their relationship, and like, well, she's hung out with, meaning Ralph's wife, has been there in front of Superman, Flash, Hawkman with his big hairy chest, but overall, she chose the Elongated Man. And once again, fuck Harley and the Joker. The best relationships are like Morticia and Gomez, True Romance, and probably Ralph and Sue. Are some of the greatest romances in comics.
I'd throw Reed and Sue in there, maybe. Yeah, That's because if you think about it, that was the first that's the first family in comics is the Fantastic Four.
It was, but then she always got real, fishy water wings with Namor periodically.
Oh, that's a whole other thing. Don't get me started on that because there's that book out now. You might have seen it at your shop, Fantastic Four Life Story. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's a total retelling of their history and everything, but it's not super drawn out. It's like each issue is a decade. And
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to spoil anything because this is still a new thing. But they change a bunch of stuff in it and they make it more relatable. And I've actually interviewed the writer before, Mark Russell. He did the Exit Stage Left, the Snagglepuss comic about him being gay and that whole thing and his son having to take over and all this other kind of shit. But it's set in the 50s when actors couldn't be gay.
Right,
openly gay, and it was great stuff. Mark Russell's great, and it's good to see Marvel. I mean, well, granted, Snagglepuss is a DC thing, but it was, it is what it is. But let's see, we got a comment here. Says I would rate Ralph and Sue above Lois and Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I mean, granted, I think their love is fantastic, but I would much prefer what's going on in the bed between John Constantine and Zatanna. Because I'm sure that's some freaky magic shit.
Oh man.
The safe word's Alakazam.
Oh, baby, say it backwards.
Oh, geez. I'm not Mr. Mixoplictic. But it's this book, and it's like you get that all in the first issue.
Right.
You get everything in the first issue, and you don't, and that's where Meltzer, I think, being a novelist comes into play. You got to build everything up right away, and then get smacked with the real nasty stuff. And for it being a big crossover book that has such an impact on the DCU going forward, it's not very Superman heavy.
No.
I mean, he knows what's going on because he heard them talking about it. If Superman's in the same room with you, you better be doing, some ALS because there ain't no. But he probably knows that too, because he's gonna be able to hear you even if you whisper.
And that was so great. I think his role maybe wasn't pivotal, but it still had the impact. And I loved the feature they would do when they would introduce characters, and they would give their relationship. Right. Nightwing and Starfire, former lovers. Right. That kind of thing, or it just if you just knew these characters maybe tangentially from a TV show or a comic you read once or twice, you got everything you needed from some of these interactions.
Right, exactly. And it's just, and then to like a lot of it is, as you go along in the book, a lot of it is sins of the father. Even if it's indirectly. Like, I know Barry was kind of like a father figure to Wally, but Hal was in no way a father figure to Kyle, but he was like, Hal Jordan is, and I will argue this till I'm out of breath, he's the benchmark for Green Lanterns. At the end of the day.
And I would agree. And I do want to explore a little bit about that. And just so, as we're talking too, we find out as the story progresses, there's a league within a league.
Right.
And it definitely caters to legacy characters, which I think is something DC does probably the best in the business.
Right.
So you have Barry being, and this is the time when Barry was dead. And Hal was dead, or Hal was
Spectre,
also Spectre at this point. Yeah. Oliver Queen had come back to life after the Kevin Smith run. So a lot of the big seven of the league had either died or were starting to come back. And to your point, as Wally is the nephew of Barry Allen, but also he has some of his uncle in him, and that's where Hal comes into play. I still maintain that Hal would be Wally's uncle, just like Clark is Grayson's uncle too.
Right.
And
I also think that Ollie would be his uncle too, because it's like those three were like the main league within a league.
Right.
Barry, Hal, and Ollie. And the fact that Barry and Hal aren't there in the book to kind of pay for their sins, as it were. It's visited upon Wally and Kyle, even though they had nothing to do with it.
And that's a very interesting take as well, where you inherit your mentors or before heroes, suits and mantle, and
Yeah.
comic rules, you inherit their villains as well. And you also maybe inherit their seat at the table.
Right.
But right, as things go, this essentially is a murder mystery where
It's total noir.
the wife of a Justice Leaguer is viciously murdered. And we haven't even mentioned the secret that Ralph probably couldn't figure out.
Yeah, the one
despite,
thing he never could have figured out.
Which just really, after the death of his wife, who he adores, there's one secret that she was saving for him, and that's just a fucking gut punch.
Yeah.
A gut punch amongst a scene that is already
like you feel so bad for him, and then you find out I think that was what the real birthday present was.
Oh yeah.
And it just knowing, it's like, oh my god, that's just it's just, oh man, it's just so
It just
man.
kills.
Yeah, it's such a, and that's why, like, I was doing a little bit of research on it, and apparently it was the miniseries was selected by the Young Adult Library Services Association as 2007's recommended list of great graphic novels for teens. So, hey teens, how are you? Here's a book about rape and murder and cover-ups and conspiracies and people getting an arrow in the eye. And Dr. Light stopping, he's not a milk toast anymore, and he tries to murder everyone.
So I mean, it's definitely a thing. So not only does this horrible tragedy amongst the main event team in the DC universe, but also characters who have been in working relationships and friends for years, and everyone's coming together. Basically, no one gives a rat's about fighting Starro or any other villain. Every hero in the city is trying to find out who took out one of their own. And they make a point to say that Sue is one of us.
Right,
It's why she
exactly.
was on the Watchtower. In fact, she got in more rooms than Lois ever did. She was around more than any other, I'm saying supporting character, but I'm saying that with air quotes. Sue was part of the league.
Right.
And every hero, here's the thing too. There's a very popular question that comes up in the story is who benefits? Who benefits from the heroes being at home with their loved ones? You know what I mean? Not being out on patrol. What's the motivation? And this is where the book ties in a lot of stuff. Let's face it, the casual reader might not know that divorce did happen in especially in the 80s. And Ray Palmer and his wife did get divorced. And that was a huge run of a series that Adam had in the early 90s. And she was really mean to him because she was a lawyer and dated some other dude and took all his patents.
Fucking bitch.
Things happen, but they bring in that element to it. So you have all of these capes, tights, dudes in wings and power rings, but yet you had very real human emotions going on.
And this is the realest I think that DC has ever gotten, with the exception of Heroes in Crisis, which I know you're still reading.
Yeah, I got to jump on that.
It is Tom King, I swear to God, is like he's the current GOAT. I have not read anything he's done that's bad. The only reason I'm not reading, I mean, I'm buying the issues to support Tom, but I'm not reading Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, not because the story's bad, but because the art is fucking atrocious. And I can't stand to look at it.
Which is rough.
Yeah, and that's why I think Tom should do everything he does with Mitch Gerads. because his Miracle Man run, not Miracle Man, Mr. Miracle run. I always get them confused, but one of them doesn't have the rape of a minor, and destroying all of London. But their run on that, and then Sheriff of Babylon was fantastic, and but it's just like I think who does the art for Heroes in Crisis? I think it's Clayman.
Clayman, yeah,
It does the art for Heroes in Crisis, and it's just
very beautiful, clean style.
Yeah, and then I'm really behind on it, but Tom King and Mitch Gerads are doing with Doc Shaner, who's fantastic. He captures that Silver Age style so well. They did Strange Adventures about Adam Strange. And yeah, Mitch would do the page about what's going on with Adam now, and then in the flashback, Doc would do the stuff. So it was a very cool back and forth. But yeah, this seems like something Tom would have done. And they don't seem to. And it's weird that they allowed Brad Meltzer. I mean, do we want to get into what Dr. Light did and why some of the heroes immediately thought it was him that did it?
I think we might have to. And so basically, if you let me, Ron,
go right ahead.
So we suddenly have a night on patrol ends horribly. One of their own is dead. So they cut to the funeral scene. And then once the funeral's over, and they make a point to say they do it in costume to make a point of saying, well, otherwise the paparazzi would be there and that kind of stuff. But immediately from the funeral, then it goes into autopsy mode. We find out that since the death of Superman and later the death of Olive the Queen, that the heroes get organized and they have these protocols in place to make sure if shit goes down, they can mobilize to find a threat that hurts them. And they even cite that every hero's apartment or house comes equipped with Thanagarian, Kryptonian, New Gods technology. How the fuck did this person get in? So after the funeral, the heroes are, doing leads. They figure out the powers. Okay, well, she was burned. Maybe it's X, Y, and Z. So the Titans will go somewhere after somebody. And they all split off to find the suspects. But there's that small, like we said before, league within a league that stays behind. And they figure out, well, the last page is Ralph Dibny saying, bring me Dr. Light. I want Dr. Light. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Why would you want him? What the hell's he done? He's nothing.
And for those who read Titans, especially George Perez, somewhere in the 80s, Dr. Light went from being a JLA villain to a Titans villain. He had the Fearsome Five, which I was a mark for. But he was always a goof. Basically, he went from being air quotes, main event villain to someone they threw to the sidekicks to fight. Why is that?
Well, they tell you in this book. I guess now, do we just say that it was something bad, or do we? I mean, you know what? I'll say it. So that way, if anybody complains about it, I'm the one who spoiled it. Basically, Dr. Light found a way onto the watchtower. And
the satellite.
Yeah, it was a satellite. And all the heroes were gone. But guess who was still there? Sue Dinby. So Dr. Light, Mr. Badass, went on there and he brutally raped Sue Dinby. And the heroes show up at the would you call it the last second? I mean,
it was the way. I mean, keep in mind the way the scene was done too, and we have got to mention the amazing art of Rags Morales.
Yes.
And the inks by Michael. I have the book in front of me. I'm going to say his last name wrong. Michael Bear.
That's why they're always the people with the weird names are the ones they're always the inkers because we never have to mention them.
Right. Who? And I remember when Rags Morales showed up on the Black Condor reboot, but his art upped its gangsta. And we talked about Neil Adams about drawing emotions and pain. Or at least I thought about him drawing pain. I can always think of that cover of him holding Robin. Just tears in his eyes and the emotions of this, but they conveyed the scene where Dr. Light showed up and they made a comment. We don't know what he was looking for. He didn't find the league, but he found Sue. And it's like he took all this frustration out on this character. And what really kills you in that scene, it's done it's done
It's not
as
gratuitous.
no, as not as gratuitous, but you know what's going on in that comment
Right.
where all she wanted to do was look at the stars.
Yep.
And the way her point of view is from the stars, and you're like, holy shit. Then the League shows up, and Hawkman comes out the door first.
And that motherfucker hits before he asks questions.
Right.
And
So after this happens, the League throws a little bit of a boot party on fucking Dr. Light.
but then but here's the thing is like right away, they decide to mind wipe him, or they throw a vote and they mind wipe him.
Right.
So he doesn't remember that what he did or how he got to that he was at the satellite or anything like that. And this happened before, mind you, when I forget the name of the team. They switched bodies with the Justice League, and everybody took their masks off. I forget who it was, but they did that before, and they had Zatanna do it. But what and we think everything's fine at that point, but then later in the book, Captain Detective, Mr. Batman, you find out, shows up had left before they mind wiped Dr. Light. He comes back as they're doing it, and they have to restrain him and mind wipe him, and then he lost his shit when he found out. That's where Brother Eye comes from. That's where everything gets set up for Infinite Crisis, for Final Crisis, for my menstrual crisis, everything.
Well, that's what's the thing too. So you have this. We're going to league. You're going to keep hearing that a lot, where the team is divided. It's Barry, Hal, Ollie, Diana, Hawkman, and Zatanna.
Right.
And part of it is like, all right, well, we don't want anyone to fucking know about this. They bring Sue to the hospital, but they don't want this guy fucking running amok in prison saying shit. And he makes a line. He's like, "Oh, my date with Sue did me." And what do you do in that motion?
I'd crack his fucking skull. I wouldn't worry about
I would agree. I would be part of a different type of vote if that was.
How about we don't mind wipe him? How about we just slice his fucking head off and throw him into space?
Open the airlock and see what happens. I'd be part of I think you and I would be part of a different team on that one, Ron.
Yeah, we'd be a league within a league within a league.
But right, and that's they do that so well. They hide that fucking pop so well, where we think it's everybody but the Trinity is involved in this. But that's a great revelation as the series goes on.
And then we're kind of skipping over the fact that the person who committed this heinous act, I'm trying not to spoil it, but they also went after the Addams wife. Yeah, they also went after the Addams wife, and they also went after Jack Drake, Tim Drake's Robin number 3's dad. But they left him a gun and a note, and so he was supposed to defend himself. But him and Digger Harkness, Captain Cold, or Boomerang, both ended up dying because of it. And now Tim Drake is an orphan.
So that's the thing too. And for those who don't know, at that time, Tim Drake did have his parents. His mother was killed in the early Jim Aparo, Chuck Dixon, Norm Brayfogle era, but he still had his dad, and he kept that secret from him in his ongoing book. And let's just also too talk about, probably not since the death of Superman has this book caused or created more plots in other storylines, in other books. You had all the heroes really take a night off and spend time with their family. So Tim was with his dad, Jack, Ray Palmer, and oh my God, I'm forgetting her name. Jean Loring. Well, maybe they were going to rekindle their marriage. They were going to stay, just protect each other.
I'm biting my tongue so much right now.
But you get all these small stories,
right?
amongst, but while all the heroes are working in this very tactical manner, Clark flies home to his parents. You
Yeah.
know, and I can't get enough. And I can't help but say how the lack of Jonathan and Martha Kent in the current continuity is very sad that Clark
He's not
didn't.
as Superman's not as grounded without them,
Agreed.
And then I don't know if you've heard the news, but they're talking about killing Kal-El again. Because he's currently on War World with the Authority, and they are trying to depose. Yeah, depose is the right word. Mongol. So Jonathan Kent has taken over as Superman on Earth,
Yeah.
and everybody's losing their shit because he's into dudes and chicks. It's like, who cares? It's not It's not Kal-El.
Right. Right.
Although I do understand why Alan Scott ended up being gay, because his weakness is wood. I mean,
You know what? When you're around people who are the most perfection of human or alien, just party, man. Just party.
all right,
Give me a
everybody,
break.
we're gonna do some uppers, some downers, some tweakers,
Yeah.
and some X, and then
Yeah.
after that, we're gonna go after Starro, and yeah, I think okay, yeah. So who's okay? Good. All right, Hal. All right, Hal. Maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
No, maybe you shouldn't, Hal.
Hal is the Captain Kirk of Green Lanterns.
He really is that dude. Man, and he's an alcoholic. Do you remember when they
Yeah.
redid
Yeah.
his origin, and he had to learn how to be a Green Lantern from Sinestro while he's doing 30 days for drunk driving?
Yeah. It was the Mark Bright era. I think Jared Jones era with the Emerald Dawn. Emerald Dawn
Yes,
is what it was.
yes, and
It was
that was right before everything started up with him. Um, uh, the whole Final Night thing, or not
oh,
even
that was,
Final Night, just Emerald Twilight. Which and for my money, if I could find a poster of it, it would be up in my house right now. Is Hal with all the rings, and it's like
oh
a
yeah.
green. It's such a cool cover. He's such a, and then you know what, and we'll get it. Maybe at some point we'll get into Zero Hour, but I love how nobody could stop him, but an arrow to his chest, which didn't really do anything, from Ollie, showing that Ollie was like, look, if I have to try to kill you to stop you, I will. And that broke Hal's heart. That's what stopped him. You know what I mean? The fact that Ollie was like, I'm willing to kill you. So he's like, well, how far have I gone?
And I think it was less. I mean, we're jumping ahead, but that was
Yeah.
less of the actual act of it as it was the
The
what do you
metaphor for it. Yeah. Like
the
it kind of,
metaphor.
yeah. Yeah. And, but yeah, oh man. So we get to the point where now Batman is comforting Tim Drake because he's now an orphan.
Oh,
Um,
that panel, the way that was done.
Oh my god.
I just
It's such
reread it
such a heartbreaking the whole book is a fucking heartbreak.
because you turn that page, it basically, you know, Tim and Bruce are trying to get back to him to get there in the race in time, and the way the panels are done, and
Yeah.
it just shows, you know what? Maybe this should be in the Scholastic book, the fucking spinner rack for a Scholastic book fair.
Maybe. I mean, hey, let the 5-year-olds read it. Why not?
But just the pacing of it, the pacing where these pages, these pictures on pages, not picture pages, but
Maybe.
you just feel the tension, and then that panel, that single page splash of just Batman and Robin, orphans, waterworks.
Yeah, I mean, but then I guess at this point we might as well. We're not going to get into who did it.
Okay, interesting.
But we'll talk about. See, we kind of have to. Uh,
As it goes, well, this is 7 issues.
right.
There was no tie-in until after the fact. So it
Right.
wasn't like you had to read parts, the Tim Drake and Batman stuff and Batman 500 whatever the fuck, and then
Right.
come back for this. It was all self-contained.
Right.
But as it goes, not only supporting cast members die, But I'm going to say main event hero in one particular place. I enjoy this character quite a bit.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, that's a big spoiler. Um, so we should avoid that. But I'm a fan of that character as well. And I was happy to see that they were being taken seriously on the CW for a little while. I don't know if they're still
yeah,
there or not. But yeah, it's oh man, and then see, it's really hard to talk about the ending of this without spoiling it because it's we have okay, you know what? Like before, I'll spoil it because that way no one can be mad at you. Because how can anybody be mad at Jesus? Um, so all right. So all this is going on. Dr. Light has regained his memory. He
yep.
hires Deathstroke to protect himself, to protect him. Deathstroke takes out the League, but ends up getting an arrow in the eye, courtesy of Ollie. And then eventually we find out who's behind it.
Well,
And
there's the great. I don't want to say redhead, but the reveal, because
yeah,
well, all this
how it was discovered that this was the person behind it.
because while this is all going on, you get Doctor Midnight, the newer one from JSA, Peter,
And Mr. Terrific, we're doing an autopsy.
who's one of my favorite characters. I love Mr. Terrific.
He has a huge part to play in Strange Adventures. So
Interesting.
yeah. So well, you figure Adam Strange is kind of an older character, so he would you know. Um so oh boy. So they find out essentially that she didn't die from the burns. She
Right,
died from somebody essentially walking on her brain. And
right, because uh,
yeah, the only person who could have done that is someone with access to Ray Palmer tech. And they know Ray wouldn't do it. So they're investigating who could have done this, who could have gotten a hold of Palmer tech and walked on Sue Denby's brain. And then boy, Ray and Jean are together. And she mentions something that they have been keeping a secret. Batman made sure to keep it a secret, and that's the letter that was written to Jack Drake
right.
about your life is in danger. You have XYZ amount of time. Here's a gun. Batman hid that note from the cops. He hid it from everybody. Only like people who are in the League knew. And then Gene Loring mentions it. And at that moment, you can almost see on Ray's face his heart drops into his stomach
But
because he knew.
just take it back a little bit though. Once there's the reveal, because it's the same note that's given to Clark, to his parents,
Right.
where there's
Oh yeah, they threaten Lois too.
they threatened Lois, and they made a point to why Tim went out that night. He's like, his dad's like, son, don't go. He's like, listen, and he's like, my dad knows my secret, but I can't ruin Clark's secret. Like, I can't tell you who it is, but it's a fucking big one. And then this is
And
going
then we'll
on.
end up with the whole injustice bullshit if something happened to Lois.
Right. But the reveal, there were two, because the burns didn't make sense to kill
Right.
it, because it was all like surface burns. It wasn't like they autopsied her.
They weren't like third-degree burns or anything.
Right, she wasn't like charcoal, shit like that. But when those tiny footprints are shown for a minute, and once again, I read these single issues, they weren't doing anything with it.
Right.
And they did the panel so beautiful, where obviously Ray Palmer and Gene Loring are going to have some sexy time, and there's a look
Hey.
on Ray's face where he's like, "Yeah." And now, with the information that did Ray step on fucking Sue's fucking brain?
Yeah.
No, he's just having bedroom eyes. He's wanting to get,
He wanted to walk inside Sue's little man in the boat.
right. It wasn't like that.
Gene's, not Sue's. I mean, the only person who's allowed the little man in the boat in Sue Denby is Ralph.
That's true. Well, stretching powers.
Honey, I'm in the bathroom right now. Okay, stretch.
Yeah. I want stretching powers and a healing factor. That's what I want.
There you go.
But right, you think like, did the fucking Atom do this?
Right.
Holy shit!
But Before we get into it, real quick here, did Identity Crisis win any awards? The only thing that happened with that is that it was named as the young adult thing that I mentioned before. That's it. And on Metacritic, it's listed as a 7.3 out of 10. But it's gotten so much hate from people.
Well, really, I mean, if I can say anything, on the back of this trade, Spin Magazine said, mystery novelist Brad Metzler shows that even superheroes have reason to be afraid. New York Post said, it has been ages since you read a superhero comic. Start with this one. Washington Post, Morales, muscular, naturalism, renders the players both timelessly iconic and believably human. Refreshing. These are very human characters in a very risky business. Entertainment Weekly.
Well, and that's the thing, is a lot of the people who were involved in this were street level heroes. Hal and Barry, or Kyle and Wally, have been involved in like interdimensional bullshit, but at the end of the day, they're street level heroes.
Right.
And Kyle doesn't even have powers. It's a ring. And he only got the ring because he was the only one that Ganthet could find. And you know what that got him? That got him his girlfriend cut up in his fucking refrigerator. That's what it got him.
See, I love Kyle so much.
See, I'm a Hal guy through and through. We've had this discussion.
Well, I'm a Hal guy. I am a Hal guy. I totally am. I love Hal. He's my first Green Lantern. The superpowers action figure, the chin, the hair. I love everything about Hal. I am a mark for Kyle, though. I am.
See, my brother's a big Kyle fan, but that's because it's all about generational. And he didn't read anything until and I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but there was that crossover with Ollie and Kyle, and the entire time Ollie is like baiting him and just jabbing at him about how you're not as good as Hal, you're no Hal Jordan, and all this stuff, and I'm loving it. I'm like, beat his little ass, fuck him up, Ollie. To hell with this young buck. You don't know what's what.
Well, that was even great too. And like Elongated Man will be with Wally, and like even the villains, his rogues would be like, "That's not how Barry did it."
Yeah, exactly.
They would
exactly. And now, I mean, I'm not going to spoil Heroes in Crisis for you, but there's a whole thing where there's like 2 or 3 different Flashes now, and it's a whole thing. But Heroes in Crisis is fantastic. Definitely check it out. But so yeah, we find out Jean Loring's behind it all, and the reason she was behind it all is she just wanted to get back together with Ray. She felt it would bring them closer together.
Didn't want to do it, but she knew that Sue was having. Oh, by the way, it was his birthday party was that night.
Yeah.
Yet she shows up. I only want to step on her a little bit, but she shrunk down weapons just in case things went wrong.
No, you went in there to kill her. Don't give me that. And then at the end, Ray disappears. He vanishes, which I think you would. And Jean Loring is in Arkham.
Yep. And
Batman is more paranoid than ever. He creates Brother Eye, and that starts the whole bunch of bullshit. I liked Infinite Crisis too. But then the lead into Final Crisis with the whole was just like no.
It was just terrible. Yeah. But the reverberations, that's the right word, carried through at the end. After when the series ended, Wally, because Wally was, once again, I know people love the CW show. Wally West is my favorite Flash, and he kept the lights on for the Flash for years.
While Barry was off doing Barry things.
Yeah, it was the first when he fucking. Well, that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah,
but
we'll get into that eventually.
Wally was the Flash for decades. He was the Flash in the Jason.
Mark Waid run was fucking amazing.
Oh. And the reason why people think that Flash is a jokester is because of Wally in the JLU cartoon. Barry's a big dull dud. He's a great hero. Don't get me wrong.
He's boring as shit.
Boring as shit. But that led into, in the Jeff Johns run, Wally dealing with finding out his mentor, his hero, had feet of clay. This also caused the end of the JLA series that Grant Morrison started. That I do believe Brett Metzler started the next version of
He
that
might
run
have, I think so.
because they have Michael Turner covers as well.
Which are fantastic looking covers.
Rest in peace. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
We're losing too many people that are only a little bit older than us, and that's not
it's true.
cool. Like we lost Steve Dillon,
Yeah, right.
Garth Ennis's
Right hand man. His
co-conspirator on Preacher and all that
Hellblazer.
stuff, and but now you see I don't know if you've seen it at the shop you work at, Soul Plumber.
Yeah.
That's there's a podcast called The Last Podcast on the Left. It's about true crime and shit like that. And the people who do that wrote that comic. And John McCrae is doing the art. And we're like, wow, the same guy. And I can say this comic name to you, and you'll be the only person I know of that remembers it. Hitman.
Hitman.
Yes.
Tommy Monahan, dude. Tommy Monahan.
Fucking love that book. Love my favorite Hitman moment. And this is a good way to end the episode. My favorite Hitman moment is when they are recruiting new people for the JLA, and he goes up to the watchtower, and they're like, yeah, you probably aren't going to make these. Like, that's okay. I just wanted to look at Wonder Woman with my X-ray vision.
Yeah, so real quick, Tommy Monahan was a character that sprung out of a really shitty storyline called Bloodlines.
Oh, it's so bad.
But he was a hitman that basically these aliens, these kind of Geiger-looking aliens, would either kill you, or if they didn't kill you, they get powers. So as a result, he had X-ray vision.
And he was telepath.
Telepathic.
Yeah.
So it was one of those great, what do you call that? Roll call, membership drive issues they do all the time.
It's after Superman came back and he had the lightning powers.
Yeah, he was Superman Blue, which that was fun. Yeah. But they would have a scene on the watchtower, everyone saying what they do, and he's like, "I'm Tommy Monahan. I have X-ray vision and kill people for money." He walks out the door, and I love it. He goes, "So, what happened?" He's like, "Don't mention money. They hate that." But he's like, "Yeah, the only reason I came to stare at Wonder Woman's boobs. It was the '90s. It was a different time."
I still love that book, though. I don't care. Oh, but I just went to look it up, right? And to see if there's any kind of collection.
There's a couple.
For Hitman. And there's little collections, but for instance, Volume 1, A Rage in Arkham, you can get it for $10 on Kindle, which seems fair. But if you want it on paperback, it's $77.
Wait,
Volume 5, Tommy's Heroes, almost $100 for a paperback.
No.
Yep.
Because they reissued those. They were larger. They were smaller, and they've been doing like 2 trades in 1. Unless they're out of print.
Ace of Killers is the only one that is like $14.
Really?
Yeah. Like, okay, there's what's this? Hitman's Greatest Hits. That's $25. That's book 8 of 8. I don't know if that's just like his literally his greatest hits, or if it's just the final installment. But one of my other favorite Tommy Monahan moments is when it's in the first couple issues of the book. Batman's chasing after Joker. Yep. Tommy, there's a hit put out on Joker, and Tommy's the guy who's got the contract, and he's going to kill Joker. Batman stops him by punching him in the stomach right after Tommy got done eating some really spicy Indian curry. Food. And he puked all over Batman's boots. And it was so great just to show, like, look, Batman can beat the shit out of anybody he wants, but there's got to be some kind of consequences with bodily fluid if you hit somebody hard enough.
The panel's great because they both look down and they realize what happened, and he just gives them. It literally gives them like an Alice to the Moon thing from the Honeymooners, and just like uppercut.
Fucking Hitman is so good.
That, and when Kyle shows up in Gotham, and like Tommy and all his buddies, they're all assassins. They have a bar they hang out in. Tommy buys the first round, and he goes to Kyle. He's like, "All right, we get the next one." He's like, "Well, there's really not any place for a wallet in this suit." And the whole bar gets pissed off that he doesn't have cash to buy the round.
Well, I mean, that's how it would probably be in real life, you know. Don't
Right,
don't
right.
uh, don't agree to drink with people if you can't pick up a round. I guess is the moral of that story. But now, would you I'm assuming you would recommend people to read Identity Crisis if they haven't, or reread it if they have, and it's been a while.
I would say yes to both, man. Like I said, it's something that stayed with me when I read it in the single issue form. I really don't say flopsies, single issues. I got this
We're
trade.
old and we don't read. We didn't pick up graphic novels unless we missed. We can't get our hands on the single issues.
Right, right. There were a handful of ones that it wasn't like it was. What it is today is not like it was back in the day.
Right.
But I reread it last night, man, and it's still in 2021. I still get the same gut punch as I did back in 2004, man.
Exactly. It's just a damn. But I concur with that statement. Pick it up if you haven't. You can get the. In fact, let me look here real quick because I was looking at the um, Absolute Identity Crisis came out in October of 2011. It's $85, but I think you get a lot of. It's 288 pages, which is like 3 times the size of the actual trade. But you get a lot of cool stuff with it. Plus, I mean, it's stunning artwork, a fabulous story. Just get to a library if you can't afford it. I'm sure a library will have it.
100% too. And not only did it carry out in some of the series I mentioned too, but DC also did a weekly event called 52,
Oh,
which I enjoyed. I enjoyed 52. They did take some of these concepts, and this wasn't a one and done thing. This had consequences for the DC universe, really up until the new 52.
yeah.
This was something that couldn't be ignored, and I highly recommend it. So once again, there's a lot of new folks coming to the shops nowadays. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, I love it. I love it. I mean, I haven't been able to hang out because of everything going on at the shop, but I go to. But I at least try to get there once a week to get your pull. That's another thing is reserve single issues at your local shops. It's the thing that keeps them going. I mean, not everybody's Midtown,
Right.
So go to your local shops, reserve books with your local nerd, and as Matt Fraction puts it.
And to be fair too, like yes, I know Ron and I are I'm definitely me on the wrong side of a certain age, but the whole waiting for the trade thing, I get it. If it's an X-Men book or a Batman book, okay, fine. Batman doesn't really need our help, but they don't make the trades unless you buy the single issues.
Right.
And so yeah, to Ron's point, our shop is very lucky. We are thriving, even in a post-pandemic, but a lot of shops aren't so lucky. So definitely, if you dig it, buy it. Buy the single issues. It shows that you're interested in.
And not only that, but when you end up buying the trade, it usually comes with extra stuff.
Right, right.
So it's like seeing the movie in the theater and then buying the Blu-ray, and it has all the bonus features on it.
Or even the box set.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, box set of a DVD.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's fantastic. Now, I know we talked a little bit about I don't know when we're going to do the next episode, but there's another one coming. But I'm wondering, did you want to do that Darwin cookbook we talked about?
I'm down jumping on that, baby.
All right. So next time we are live, I'm not sure when because my work schedule's all wonky and we got to talk about when we want to do it and that kind of thing. But we are going to talk about the Darwin Cook penciled and written New Frontier, which I think we also have to talk about the animated movie at the same time because one really goes with the other. Yeah, so that's going to wrap everything up. Don't forget to go to your local shops and support them because why the fuck not? And we will see you guys next time. Oh, where can everybody find you?
Oh, nice. Yeah. So if you like any of the nonsense that I spoke about tonight, my name is Michael Ravenshadow. I'm a co-host on Trick or Treat Radio. We do a podcast. We're on our 10th year. It's a horror-themed podcast. Every week we discuss at least one film. We discuss comics, pop culture, wrestling. The best press we had gotten in my mind were the Howard Stern meets the Nerdist. So it's the current roster is myself, along with Johnny Wolfenstein, Producer Supreme, Ares God of War, and Monster Zero. So the live show drops on YouTube on Thursday nights around 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and the audio drops on Stitcher and all the platforms on Friday morning. So check us out.
Fantastic. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time when we talk about the Darwin Cookbook. Darwin Cookbook. New Frontier. And we'll talk about the animated movie as well. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bambaleo.